Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum and what's up, guys? Welcome to the second episode of the Daily Sisters, the pod all about our daily life and all about you. Today we're talking all about quarantine. So without further ado, I am one of the four Daily Sisters, Shami. But first, we the Daily Sisters love to hear opinions from our listeners, and therefore your story is our story and vice versa, and we love to hear from you. This is all for you. So, but before that, I would like to address first the meaning of quarantine. Yes, quarantine is actually a state or place of isolation for a person or animal who may have come in contact with contagious diseases. So, the period of isolation lowers the chance that person or animal could transfer illnesses to others. So, quarantine isn't reserved for sick people only. People who appear healthy could spread a pathogen without ever knowing they were carriers, which is why travelers who appear healthy may still be quarantined depending on when they are visiting from. So, the recovery phase of Malaysia's Movement Control Order (RMCO) has been extended until March 31st, 2021, said Senior Minister Security Cluster Ismail Sabri Yaakob on Friday, January 1st. He said the decision was made following a risk assessment conducted by the Ministry of Health (MOH), which found that there was still a significant rise in COVID-19 cases nationwide, with a high infectivity rate. Malaysia entered the RMCO phase on June 10, where almost all social, educational, religious, and business activities, as well as economic sectors, reopened progressively. Interstate travel was also permitted, while the country's borders remained closed. The RMCO was previously scheduled to end on December 31st, 2020. According to Ismail Sabri, also all standard operating procedures under the RMCO will apply during the period and are subject to changes that will be announced from time to time. So, I want all of you to flash back to March 18, 2020. Whoosh. The MCO started. All of us required to stay at home, and flights around the country were halted, grounding many of the planes in the KLIA. Along with the flights also halted with the stream of tourists into Malaysia. For the first time, houses of worship across the country are closed. These enhanced movement control order areas are set up around hotspots of COVID-19 infections. During the MCO, Malaysians are not allowed to leave their home except to buy food and other essential items. Malaysians' love for food take a hit when restaurants are only allowed to open for takeaways and deliveries only. So many things have changed. Life in the city does not seem so busy. Schools and educational institutions are still closed. Only essential services are allowed to continue, and many are using this break to be with their families. We are now faced with a situation which is very different from like a year ago. It is a drastic change, but we have to be open and accept the situation because it is a matter of life and death, and we have to break the change of infection of COVID-19. Being negative affects everything, but when we think positively, we build good energy in our thoughts, which help us deal with the boredom or stress of staying at home. One way to remain positive was to perform activities that break the monotony of everyday routines. Actually, according to psychologists at the Department of Educational Psychology and Counseling, University Malaya, Professor Dr. Mariani Matno said the MCO was actually a blessing in disguise as it had many benefits. So, moving on to the questions from our audience, which um, is actually how do we stay healthy in a balanced way during these MCO periods? So, I would like to start this to answer this question by highlighting that our Prime Minister Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin went on air to plead with everyone to hashtag just stay at home, to hashtag flatten the curve and cut new COVID-19 infections. And we owe it to everyone from the medical fraternity who are working full force to ourselves and our families and to communities who live with compromised immunity to do our part in bringing down the number of infections. So your spinning classes are cancelled and parks are off limit for your morning runs, but there are ways to keep ourselves physically and mentally healthy without having to venture out of your house. So first thing first, actually we can do is spring clean our home. So we must use this time to throw out things that are useless and pack those that can be donated after the MCO is over. Research is clear on this. Spring cleaning is good for mental health. Author Regina Leeds, who wrote One Year to an Organized Life, says, cleaning up creates in the physical world the pattern of how we think and experience the world. Your clutter is what's going on inside of you. So clean your house and your mind of the things that's been surrounding you and enjoy that clearer space and head. Based on my experience, I also did this spring clean in my own house, and actually it did give me a good positive feedback towards my mental health because it's actually when we packed all those my old books and all those clothes that I can't wear anymore and give it to others. It gave, I think, satisfaction towards my heart, towards the need of my heart, to need the needs of my mental health. So that's it for spring clean home. So next one is cook our own food. So sure, restaurants are open and GrabFood and Foodpanda riders are available to deliver our meals. But since we are eating in any way, fix our meals ourselves. So one of the ways to lose weight is to cook our own food. This way, we know exactly our portion and the ingredients that go into them, and giving it more control over what we consume for the next 13 days. Do this diligently and plan our meals well, and we may even drop one size when this period is over. We can also watch workout videos, whether it's dance, Zumba, HIIT, or Tabata. Workout videos help you exercise within the confines of your home. High intensity interval training, for example, helps with strength at a time when you cannot develop cardiovascular fitness by running outdoors or cycling. But don't forget the cardinal rule of exercise. Warm up before you start and warm down after. Next one is don't stock up on junk food. When you go out to get your provisions, uh, make sure that we stock up on nutritious, not easy food. Instead of instant noodles and chips, put more fruit and vegetables into our cart. Since we are going to be home most of the time, we will end up eating what's in our food shelf and refrigerators. So keep them stocked with healthy options like nuts or low sugar granola, and always practice portion control. And lastly is we can actually use this time to sleep earlier. We are all guilty of sleep deprivation, so use this period to give yourself much needed sleep. Medical website WebMD says adults need between 7 to 9 hours of sleep every night. If we don't sleep enough, we will accumulate what experts call sleep debt. Continuous sleep debt may all result in feelings of depression and weight gain. Use the next 13 days to adjust our circadian rhythm so we are healthier. These are some of the tips to stay healthy in a balanced way despite having assignments and online classes in our daily basis. So, other than that, we also must be positive to stay healthy mentally in this period of time rather only focusing on our physical. So, uh, other than that, major perks of having COVID-19 season is our time is actually more flexible, especially we as a student. And COVID-19 is actually an unprecedented experiment for the modern workplace. And while it proves flexible working for many, it can sometimes magnify problems for others. Um, what we want to what we want to talk about is in remarkably short space of time, the COVID-19 pandemic has dramatically changed the way we live, work, and study. Without downplaying the massive dislocation caused by the stay-at-home orders, particularly for service, retail, and travel-related jobs, we are also seeing something of a revolution for those of us fortunate enough to have stable jobs that can mostly be done from home. Many employees have long called for more and better flexible work arrangements, whether to accommodate career duties, working parents, or work-life balance. Indeed, if you are smart about it, the pandemic is an opportunity to embed flexible work practices or flexible study practices. But as research shows, just because our study is flexible, that doesn't mean it is good. And our research looking at how employees feel about different ways of working flexibly suggests how we could get it right. So top down, thanks to the pandemic, studying from home has become mandatory for many students, imposed by the education ministers trying to adhere to social distancing guidelines. This externally imposed flexible work is what us researchers, the US researchers have called black bad flexibility. The choice to work or study from home on a high concentration project over a few days is quite different to having to work from home all day, every day, particularly if there are children around or siblings around. That element of employee choice or student choice is crucial when it comes to student approval of different work arrangements. In 2018, we look at employee responses to an employee imposed schedule of 4 10-hour days with Fridays off. We found that overall, majority of those who responded felt the experience was a positive one and that the benefits of the new schedule outweigh the negatives. Employee satisfaction with the new schedule was influenced by factors including one's our own work schedule preferences and happiness with the new schedule's implementation. At the same time, organizational sick leave figures and survey results regarding informal work schedules highlighted issue with worker fatigue. Importantly, workers who had previously worked flexibly were happier with the new schedule. For this reason, we suspect that current stay-at-home measures mean that people with existing experience working from home are more likely to approve of these mandatory measures. Um, but things might be quite different for a primary school teacher with no experience wrangling students remotely. And it's also applied to higher education students. We also experience this kind of things, and um, when we already experience how to like study at home, actually we do know how to um, tackle the things and do it the right way. And it's actually a new practices that need to be a new norm for us. For researchers like us, for like students like us, orders to stay at home provide a natural experiment about which parts of our jobs can be done well online and which cannot. And more importantly, the organizational practices and cultures that are most suited to this unavoidable time of change. For example, stay-at-home measures require unprecedented shift for managers now that their direct reports are all online. And management practices like managing by walking around or the less creative presenteeism approach of casting an eye about to check that workers are in their seats. So students are actually in their seats are not particularly amenable to do the online environment. Even if we do have various means of electronically checking up on people, continual monitoring is not the best way to manage in a virtual environment. Even Zoom has had second thoughts about its attention tracking tools. This unexpected change provides us with the opportunity to consider management best practice, including a focus on tangible outcomes and deliverables, rather than favoring employees who look busy and stay late. Stay-at-home orders can also reorient existing flexible arrangements in interesting ways. A friend in a startup, a remote worker based in Melbourne, found that coordinating with the Sydney-based team suddenly became easier, and that new online happy hours on Fridays quickly became a new tradition. So the silver lining on this story is the conditions that suddenly have everyone working at home or studying at home are likely to magnify any workplace culture issues for better or worse. On the positive side, now that everyone is studying remotely and it's easier to see that the study is still getting done, managers are likely to become more comfortable with flexible work in the future. On the flip side, workplaces, study places that already have poor work life or study life boundaries could become even more oppressive, with increasingly unreasonable expectations like answering emails during the evening and weekends, or regular Zoom calls at 7 p.m. on Fridays. And at the same time, it suggests that even the changes we want most can fade away with time. To make sure we keep the good aspect of the COVID-19 flexible work experiment, organizations will need to take a multi-pronged approach, formalizing flexible work arrangements and figuring out new kinds of annual review metrics, and all of these strategies need to be backed up with persuasive messages, communication from managers, and senior management support. And COVID-19 is an unprecedented experiment for the modern workplace. To keep the good parts, we'll need to lock in positive changes with new workplace policies. Hence, I hope all of our listeners always stay positive in the state of COVID-19 situation, especially the students. With isolation upon us, it's difficult to keep ourselves motivated during this tough time. It's so easy to let our mind wander and for worry to kick in with so much uncertainty. While we all are allowed a pajama day or two during lockdown, I don't want to look back on the time with regret. After all, lockdown offers great new opportunities for me, and it can be a fulfilling and rewarding time. It's actually how did I spend my time and cope during this quarantine season. And here are the 5 things I did to stay motivated and actually stay away from social media when I was in the quarantine phase. Firstly, I limit my news consumption. We are surrounded by news, from clicking on TV channels to opening a paper and even checking my timeline. We are faced with all the latest on the coronavirus, but while we need to stay in the know, it's not healthy to sit and dwell on what is occurring in the world. After all, a lot of the news will drag down my mood. Therefore, it's best to limit my news consumption, decide my time that I will check in with what's happening in the world and stick to it. Based on my experience, I will check the latest headlines first thing in the morning and after dinner in the evening only. Secondly, I watch those films I've been wanting to watch for ages. We all have a list of films and TV box sets that we really want to watch, but we never make the time to see them. After all, we are normally very busy with our work and study and social life. So during the quarantine offers a perfect opportunity to catch up on these must-watch series and films. Some of the films that I've watched are Forrest Gump, Imitation Game, and the Harry Potter series, and it was such a great time. And I also do a daily workout. It's important to stay active during this stay-at-home season. While I might struggle to have the energy for a workout, I will feel so much better for it afterwards. It will boost my mood and help me feel motivated to get on with the rest of my day. Whether I want to have a run around the clock, do some Zumba, or even follow a class online, completing exercise every day will help me to stay healthy. It is a fantastic way to ensure we are keeping our steps up while we're stuck at home. Mostly I just followed dance routine through YouTube every evening to ensure that I bring my sweat. So I also check in with my friends and family. We need to ensure we stay social during lockdown. And sometimes I might feel like I'm losing touch with close friends and family, but it's so important that I stay motivated by checking in and having conversations with them all. A lot of people are using FaceTime or Zoom to chat with their loved ones, but if I aren't into speaking over video chat, a message a day will lift my spirits. For the record, I contacted all my good friends during my elementary days, and it was so awesome contacting and having chat with them, and it's all bring back all my good memories. Lastly, it's pick up a new hobby. We can't think of anything more rewarding than picking up a new hobby during lockdown. I can look back and think that I learned that new skill during the pandemic. Whether I decide to learn a new language or even how to use an instrument, it's a great way to spend my time wisely and will ensure I stay motivated so that I do accomplish the new skill by the end of lockdown. For me, the new things that I've tried is cooking. Every day I try to learn new menu. It helped me to increase my culinary skill and basic knowledge of cooking. I wasn't a person who liked or loved to cook, but during this season, I've learned to love cooking for my own new experience. The most accomplished dish that I've ever made is ayam masak merah, and all of my family members say it was very delicious, and I am proud of myself. And lastly, please remember to treat this quarantine as a great time to work on you. So actually, that's it from me. Now I'll pass the mic to my sister Afika.
Hi everyone, right off the bat, this is your beloved host Africa. For our second episode, I will be answering 3 questions that have to do with quarantine life from our listeners. So without wasting any more time, let's jump straight into the first question. First of all, one of our listeners asked, why is quarantine life associated with depression? As always, I did my research first. Okay, so with quarantine life, there will be social isolation, and this social isolation will either cause your depression or make your depression worse. Since this is such a stressful time, so this isolation can have negative impacts on your mental health. From my own experience, and this is before the whole COVID-19 things happen, when you feel down and low, you have this sudden urge to shut everyone out from your life. You want nothing to do with outside life. You don't want to have any interaction with anyone. You just want to lie down on your bed and do nothing. But at the end, eventually you still need to go out because you need to attend your class physically. So you can't be in that state forever. Your mental can't be in the state forever. Your surrounding does not allow you to do that. But now with quarantine, you don't have any reasons to go out. It's not that important. So it opens up an opportunity for you to wall yourself even more in isolating yourself from other people. And it's bad because you resent with yourself that it's valid for you to do that, but deep down you know you're slowly ruining yourself mentally. You have no reason to go out at all. Yeah, that's true, because you need to take care of your physical health, but your mental health is not doing so good. Or you might know that you're in the state of self-isolating yourself from everyone, and you don't want to be in that state anymore. You want to go out, have a social life, and get yourself out from that deep hole that you're stuck in. But with our current situation, you can't really do that. And yeah, that can lead to depression. Secondly, quarantine life might also lead to depression because not everyone has a good relationship with their family back at home. For other people, maybe staying at home during quarantine might be heaven for them. But for some people who are unfortunate, being back at home, pardon my choice of word, might be hell for them. Maybe their parents are constantly fighting and they are being mentally and physically abused, and they can't go out to seek help because they need to stay in home because it's COVID-19. Then at the same time, they also need to juggle with online classes and assignments while facing the stress of having a very toxic environment at home, and all of this can lead to depression. They're living in such toxic environment, and they can do nothing to seek help. Personally, I suggest seeking professional help, because when you seek professional help, you can get yourself diagnosed, and when you have the correct diagnosis, you know the right way in order for you to help yourself. But of course, not everyone has the luxury of getting diagnosed, getting the proper help, so we can do research on internet on how we can help ourselves, such as making sure we have constant communication with our friends so that we will not feel that lonely. Maybe you can also confide your problems in them with the people that you trust so that they can always check up on you. And lastly, find yourself a hobby or anything that you can do to bring yourself comfort, such as watching TV shows, listening to music, reading novels, knitting, or anything that can bring you comfort. Because in these rough times, you need to have something that can bring you happiness so you will not feel depressed 24/7. So that's a few answers that I can give on why whenever people talk about quarantine life, it is associated with depression, because a lot of problems actually happen. There are good sides of being quarantined, but we cannot ignore the bad sides that comes with it. The best we can do is make sure the people that we know who are facing these problems are okay. We need to help them so they can get better. So I hope this answered your question, our dear beloved listeners. Moving on, for the second question, we will also ask to share some thoughts about the best part of quarantine as submitted in the Google form provided. So according to our audience, there's a lot of things to enjoy during quarantine life, and I've chosen to talk about studying. For our listeners, it seems like being in quarantine life has allowed them to have more time to study, and I wholeheartedly agree with this statement. But of course, not everyone feels the same way. Some people have the privileges where staying at home gives them the luxury of studying anytime they want. They can be more focused, but for some people, they're unfortunate. They do not have the comfort of studying in their own home due to factors like family problems, lack of Wi-Fi connection, or not having a study buddy, and many more. But since we're talking about the best part of quarantine, I will only be discussing about the positive sides of studying at home during this pandemic. First of all, when you're studying at home, whether it's in your own room or not, you don't have to commute much from one place or another like you used to do back in university or any other educational institutions. This alone has saved you so much time. You don't have to wait for the bus. You don't have to stop at multiple places before arriving at your destination, such as lecture hall or faculty. And you don't have to repeat the same cycle again when you want to go back to your college. Instead, you can just sit in front of your laptop and just wait for the class to start. While waiting for the class to start, you can also do some quick revision before the class instead of sitting in the bus full of people. Secondly, you also have more control of your study environment, and I would like to apologize again beforehand because I know that not a lot of people are able to do this. What I meant by having more control is that you can study anytime and anyhow you want. Let's say, for example, back in university, you have to share your room with your roommates, and your roommates happen to be someone who sleeps very early, but you happen to be someone who enjoys studying starting at midnight. So you might feel a little bit guilty when you study at night because your roommate is sleeping, but you're still studying and the lamp is on. So you might feel you might feel guilty because of that, because in some way you feel like you're disturbing their sleep. But if anyone who used to be my roommates are listening to this, I would like to apologize. This is just an example, so please don't feel offended. But personally for me, by studying at home, I can study whenever I want, let it be 2 in the morning. And I can still have the light on because I share my room with my sister, and frankly, she doesn't really cares about it. As long as she can sleep, she sleeps. And when we think about it, we can be more forward and demanding with our siblings compared to our roommate. So we can just so if you compare the situations between asking your roommates and asking your sister to have the light on, I think all of us will be very much more comfortable with asking our sisters instead of our roommates. Also, you can memorize things loudly or listen to some lo-fi beats or music or library ASMR without having to wear your earphones, because excessive usage of earphones can lead to damage to your ears. So yeah, I think that also one of few of the good things while studying at home. You can have more freedom with the way you study. And lastly, I think this is one of the things that most students can agree on, which is you can watch the recording of your class. It's hard to understand during the class, even during physical class, face-to-face. It's hard to understand to understand the first time you listen to the lecture. But with online class, you can watch back the recording. With physical class, when you have to study again, you have nothing to rely on except from your own memory and the notes that you jotted down with very, very hideous handwriting that you can't even read it. But with online class, we can record the class and you can watch the recording. You can watch it anytime you want. You can listen to it, pause, take some time to process your thoughts on whatever you just studied before hitting the play button again. You can also watch the recording at any speed you want. Let's say you're busy, you need to do other things, but at the same time you also want to watch back the recording. You can just watch it at double speed. Or you're a slow learner, you can't catch up with what your lecturer is talking about, you can watch it at 0.5 speed. So yeah, it's very flexible and very helpful. That's one of the things that I also like about this quarantine life, because with online class you can watch back the recording. But I will not elaborate that much on the benefits of studying at home, which is online learning, because it will be a topic we will discuss on our next episode, which is also the last episode. So stay tuned, guys. So yeah, that's just some of the reasons on why studying can be one of the best things about quarantine. Lastly, I will talk about what I did during the quarantine, because, well, the whole concept of this podcast is we will answer whatever our listeners want us to talk about. So, how did I spend it? Personally, I'm a big fan of TV shows, so I watch a lot of TV shows. There was a phase during the quarantine, during the early time of quarantine, where I was obsessed with Thai TV shows, and that's the only thing I did all day. And later I became obsessed with true crime stories. So I spent my time watching all 6 seasons of BuzzFeed Unsolved True Crime and BuzzFeed Unsolved Supernatural. And later I watched Criminal Minds, where there are 50 seasons of Criminal Minds, and I have watched all 15 seasons and 324 episodes. So you can see how I spend most of my quarantine life, which is watching TV shows, because it calms me and it's very relaxing. I also learned how to edit videos using a software called Sony Vegas Pro. I enjoyed it very much because learning how to edit videos has been a thing that is a thing that I've been wanting to do since 2018, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm very glad with the time I have during quarantine, I can finally learn how to start editing properly. I also had the chance to reconnect with my high school friends, just update each other on what's happening in our life right now. I found new music and artists to listen to, such as Pentatonix and Queen, and lastly, without a single doubt, I get to spend more time with my family back at home, because everyone is either working or learning from home. So yeah, that's what I did during quarantine. Basically, it's a lot, but most of the time I spend it by watching TV shows because I enjoy it very much. So that's all from me. I wish I can talk more, because I am someone who cannot stop talking, frankly. But due to time constraint, I have to stop here. This is our second episode. I hope you guys enjoy it very much. We will distribute the Google form for our third episode later. Third episode, which is also the last episode. So please stay tuned. And the next part will be handled by my friend Nabila. Bye.
Hi everyone, Nabila here. So it's literally the second episode already, and someone asked me on how to avoid procrastination, especially during quarantine. And I was a bit flustered to answer this question because I would say that I am the perfect definition of a procrastinator actually. I used to be curious about this self-induced condition and did some research in the past. Surprisingly, procrastination is associated with perfectionism, and I was kind of astonished and shocked on how this habit could be related to such a thing as perfectionism. So I dug up more on this matter and looked up on things that are related to the question. In short, procrastination is the action of delaying or postponing something. It could be further stated as a habitual or intentional delay of starting or finishing a task, despite knowing it might have not negative consequences. It is a common issue among students and many adults. There are many who struggle with deadlines every day with the feeling of impending doom as the exam or project date looms. It is a common human experience involving delay in everyday chores or even putting off salient tasks, such as attending an appointment, submitting a job report or academic assignment, and even broaching a stressful issue with a partner. It is one of the largest problems seen in college counseling centers, and it is something nearly everyone has had to deal with at some point in their lives. Figuring out which group we're in could ultimately break us out of our procrastination patterns. I read that there are four main types of procrastinators, which are the performer, the self-deprecator, the overbooker, and the novelty seeker. For the first one, which is the performer who says, I work well under pressure, this procrastinator forces themselves to focus by shrinking the time they have to tackle a task. I think I am that kind of person, and the real shocking reason behind this is actually perfectionism. If we're tight on time, there's no way the task can be done to our unreasonably high standards anyway, right? For others, the issue is simply falling back into old patterns and beliefs that we have about our 11-hour saves. No matter what, being in the habit of putting pressure on ourselves should not be sustained. The biggest challenge for this type of procrastinator is getting started. I could totally relate to this. I have always felt that I should start doing my task or my assignment when it is nearly due. That is when ideas pop out of pressure compared to normal days. The thing is that I never thought myself as a perfectionist. So, yeah, this is honestly like so new to me. So, basically, the solution to this type is that we just need to flip the script and set a start date, all right? So, when we focus on when we are going to begin a task and not when we hope to end it, it would take a tremendous amount of pressure off of ourselves. Moving on, the second one would be the self-deprecator, who would always be chanting, I am so lazy right now. This type of procrastinator is actually the opposite of lazy. So when they don't do something, they are actually extra hard on themselves. They tend to blame inaction on laziness or stubbornness rather than admit that they are tired. What they really need is to be more compassionate with themselves. The biggest challenge for them is taking a break. We already know that they are going to say that they don't have time to rest. The solution is that to recharge. They need to try to take a break and take a walk to give themselves space and begin to rebuild their energy. All right. For the third one would be the overbooker who would always say, I'm so busy. This procrastinator is a pro at filling up their calendar and is often overwhelmed. The phrase I'm so busy is probably the excuse we hear most often. Interestingly, some of the busiest people we work with get the most things done. When busyness comes up as an excuse for not doing something, it's usually an indication of avoidance. Rather than facing a challenge head on or admitting they don't want to do something, it's easier to place the blame on having other important things to do. The solution to this type of procrastinator would be taking a moment of introspection. Ask yourself, what am I really avoiding actually? It would be totally helpful to that kind of person. Okay, Last but not least is the novelty seeker, who says, I just had the best idea. The procrastinator has a terminal case of shiny object syndrome. They're constantly coming up with new projects to take on and then getting bored with them a week later. They're intrigued by the latest trend and will be quick to implement but not follow through. They are great at making decisions and taking action. However, they end up inadvertently losing a lot of time and burning out because they don't take consistent action in one direction long enough to see results. Many of entrepreneurs fit into this category. Their biggest challenge would be completion. The solution would be making it stick, literally. Writing down new ideas or projects on a sticky note would really help a lot, but those shouldn't be pursued until all the ongoing work or projects are finished. Okay, so if you don't fit in those four types, do not panic yet, people, because that was just a summary based on what I've read online. That was literally the beginning. So chill, guys, and take a deep breath. Okay, there are other solutions to procrastination in general as well. First step is to resolve your procrastination is to get organized. You can't do any work if you don't know what assignments need to be completed or any chores that needed to be done. Invest in a planner or start using the calendar app on your phone. This makes it much easier to keep track of any important due dates. The second one would be setting simple, achievable goals. Part of the reason we procrastinate is because the task at hand seems too daunting. It's a lot easier to get started on a project when you establish simple, reachable goals rather than a big vague plan, right? For instance, instead of telling yourself, I'll study economics tonight, say, I'll study chapter 6 tonight. This makes your goal less intimidating and more attainable. The third one would be creating a timeline or schedule. Breaking an assignment or list of chores into small chunks over time makes it much more manageable. The next thing would be setting a deadline. So many people get trapped in the cycle of someday I'll organize my things or I'll get to that pitch back eventually. The truth is, someday and eventually never come. It's important to set a specific date for when you want your goals to be accomplished. If you have an assignment due, aim to have it completed 1 or 2 days in advance. That way, if something unexpected happens, you still have extra time to complete it. Getting rid of distractions is also crucial to rid yourself of all potential disruptions before you begin working so you don't get needlessly sidetracked halfway through your task. Getting caught up on Snapchat or Instagram instead of working on stuffs is such a big no. Shut your phone off if you need to. Alright? So the next piece would be using incentives. Everyone loves being rewarded, right? I mean, who doesn't? It's important to give yourself incentives, no matter how small. It could be something as simple as, if I finish cooking a meal, I'll watch an episode of my favorite TV show tonight. It's easy to pay attention when something is at stake. Getting the hard stuff done first is usually the most difficult step to take, including me myself. This may make you want to push everything back further. It's hard to do something that you don't want to do, but guess what? Once you initiate the first move, it will be over in the blink of an eye. Okay? Okay, right. I'm just kidding about that blink of an eye part, but trust me, it gets easier the more we go. We just need to start and trust the process. So, buckle down and just do it. Also, tell someone about your goals. It's easy to forget about our intentions and plans for the day. For the day. If you're the only person being yourself, if you're the only person holding yourself accountable, if you really want to get something done, tell a friend or family member. There would be that extra someone holding you responsible for your goals. You can't back out or slack off after that, right? All right, so finally, yet importantly, never forget to take a break. It's okay to take mental breathers from daily routines every now and then, especially during the quarantine period. When your timer goes off, take a 10 to 30-minute break. Listen to music, take a walk, or scream into a pillow. Anything that takes your mind off of work and allows you to relax. Alright, so moving on to the next part, which is the best part of quarantine. Some people said that quarantine life or the country's lockdown was a flop, but to me, it was ultimately a blessing in disguise. No joke. Back in the days, we tend to look on the bigger things outside and forgot the small little things inside and around us. We wanted big progress to compete against one another. Traveling abroad, posting pictures of high-end activities on social media, and many more. With quarantine, it has forced each and every one of us to sit back and look into things that we never reached for. Most of the responses said that the best part of their quarantine would be home. It is totally relatable since home is where the heart is. There are a lot of things that I've done during quarantine period, and I'm gonna mention about it a bit later, but I just want to highlight that they are solely done at home. Okay, so for most people, home is where love resides. Memories are created and laughter never ends, and that is what I felt exactly during the period. It gives out a sense of comfort that couldn't be described into words. Before quarantine happens, everyone spent the least of time at home. Most people went to work nearly 8 to 10 hours a day and only came back home to sleep. For some students who are in boarding school especially, they would only be coming home around like once per month, and even if they are at home, they're just gonna be caught up in their rooms, busy doing schoolwork. But with quarantine, everyone is obliged to stay at home and get to spend more time together as a family. What I want to highlight is that quarantine period has brought families together. Mothers also have a respite from tiring household chores, as children and other family members are sharing the burden of cleaning and cooking. Personally, for me, the best part about staying at home is that I could get everything done at my own pace. I don't have to wake up like so early to get ready. I can wear my pajamas the whole day to my own comfort if I want to, and I didn't need to iron my clothes and stuffs. By staying at home, people have a lot of time to cook instead of eating out. We could save money from that and getting all those balanced nutrients needed by our body. Moreover, we could totally save money out of not using petrol. Quarantine at home has also helped people improve their sleep hygiene. As everyone knows, sound sleep is essential for boosting our immunity, thus helping our body fight deadly viruses. Before, sleep was the last thing we would be focusing on in our effort to meet other priorities in life. Waking early and rushing to our offices had become a regular feature of our daily schedules. As we were bound to work from our homes, we were able to get sufficient sleep. All right, moving on. I would say that though I procrastinated a lot during quarantine, I made quite the best out of it. I tried to make every day of quarantine as productive as I could. As a person who couldn't stick to one routine, I list out on a lot of stuff that I would try to be doing during the period. First thing that came to mind was decluttering my stuffs, physically, mentally, and digitally. I cleared up old stuff that I would not be reaching for anymore. Some of them went to the trash bin, and the others went to the nothing bag. I cleared up a good amount of junk in my phone and laptop storages, including unused files from previous semesters and hideous photos from the past as well. I found it therapeutic, and it has been shown that decluttering is a good practice of self-care. Too much stuffs and clutter can cause a significant amount of stress in our lives in a variety of ways. We'll get too suffocated when there's no space or there's just like too many stuffs in our room, right? So, decluttering is the best way to give a person the chance to breathe in peace and happiness. And that's exactly the way I felt after finishing up decluttering. The next step after decluttering would be organizing. I did a lot of organizing, especially for my clothes and books. I used to rummage through stuffs when I need them, and it will turn out to be super messy because they were just disorganized in the first place. So I took the time and chance that I had during quarantine time to sort out my stuffs the way it should be. I hung my shirts by colors, arranged my books by series or genres, and placed my makeup in organizers by types. Okay, I love on how they turn out to be right now because it's easier to access to things, and there would be only a tiny chance for me to not notice my stuffs and ended up not using them. Other than that, I also watch a handsome amount of Korean dramas. The Korean language itself became familiar to me since I watch it frequently, that it became a part of my daily routine. The genre that I would personally recommend is romantic comedy. They are worth watching with the blend of its addictive storyline and lines of good-looking actors and actresses. I learned a lot of life lessons as well while I was on it. I even watched a few Korean variety shows such as Running Man. If you know, you know, girl. and some action genre American TV shows that fill my daily dosage of screen time. I've also watched some movies during quarantine period and I've recommended some during our first episode, so do check it out. So when it comes to watching movies during quarantine, there was one movie that specifically caught my eyes, which was Contagion. The title is Contagion. It was legit so real and so similar to the COVID-19 condition that I got caught up to it. The cinematography is a bit dull, but the storyboard was enticing since it is so relatable to what we are currently enduring. So guys, do have a watch on how they cope with the disease in the movie and take the good stuffs out of it, okay? Moving on, I even started an online business with my best friend during quarantine. Since we had an ample amount of time, it was a cotton shawl business and it was a great experience. We gained quite an amount of money and we even became closer day by day throughout our business journey. I even came to a realization that working to gain money is a tough nut and not an easy job. It made me more grateful and thankful for everything that I have. Quarantine life has also made me do unexpected things that I would be doing on a daily basis, which is cooking. I learned a lot of recipes from my mother and grandmother. Some of them turned out good, and some of them weren't half bad, but weren't half good either. Those days made me practice even harder till I get the perfection that I wanted in cooking. Likewise, practice makes perfect. Till today, I'm still practicing on my cooking skills, and cooking has had a very special place in my heart ever since. Then, the biggest achievement during quarantine period for me is that I got the chance to fast during the whole month of Ramadan with my family and celebrate Eid with them. I was contented because we spent a lot of time together, especially during breaking fast, where everyone would be at the table and not being busy at work. It strengthened our bonds even better than before. I was delighted and thankful for the moments that we had. Ultimately, COVID-19 was such a blessing in disguise. There were also hectic moments during my quarantine period when I was undergoing online classes. There was an abundant pile of assignments to be completed in such short periods. It was fun to reminisce those times when I panicked in finishing up my due assignments. It was tough, but I never regretted that it happened. Early moments on how I coped on online classes was a good memory. Though the journey was rough, it was rough. It was definitely worth the grades. Last but not least, I signed up on TikTok like most people. TikTok is the trend nowadays and it is obviously a real deal. I learned things that weren't taught in school, like new dances, new quick 5-minute recipes, and extremely helpful life hacks. It is also a platform for me to expand my networking and hone my creative skills too. For those who haven't downloaded it yet, wait till you have some leisure time because I'm sure that you guys are gonna get so hooked and attached to be doing anything else. Okay, so I think that's all for my part. Bye!
Hi guys, Shahira here. Okay, next we have a very interesting topic from our audience that is, do people shop a lot during quarantine? So what is your answer? Do you shopping, including that online shopping, a lot during these past few months? Statistically speaking, yes. Many research and surveys have shown the rise in online shopping. As quarantine start, people have switched to the new normal, which includes online shopping, whether it's groceries, clothes, electricals item, and also food delivery. Based on a recent survey conducted by cashback platform Shopback, 84% of the respondents indicate that they have shopped online more frequently compared to the period before the implementation of movement control order in Malaysia. So I did my research, and good news, it is completely normal if you spend more during this quarantine. Firstly, we worry about the basic, like staying healthy and feeding ourselves. Then the second order concern emerge. If you are privileged enough to be able to work remotely, the fear of boredom, coping badly with confinement, or not having the best equipment to do your work might be your next concern. Shipra Gupta, a professor at University of Nebraska-Lincoln, who studies how consumers react to scarcity. She differentiated between consumer utilitarian motivation and their hedonic motivation. Utilitarian motivation, just like its utility, are functional. urging us towards buying necessities, especially when we perceive scarcity. Hedonic fulfillment is instead derived from the perceived fun or playfulness of the shopping. The most relevant element of hedonic motivation right now, in the absence of physical interaction, are adventure shopping for stimulation and excitement, gratification shopping to enhance mood, and ideal shopping to stay current with trend. Such purchase might not be totally necessary. I made it. The new phone casing, that cute sneakers, or that fancy 3-in-1 speaker. But they are an important way of exercising freedom that is lost during a moment like quarantine. Buying this kind of stuff is an obvious attempt to replace the pre-quarantine life that we have been forced to leave behind. We are craving a few symbols of normalcy in this terrifying situation. Some people miss going to cafe, so they make sure to stock up fancy-ish coffee beans. Coffee makers also have a rise in sale these days. Mirror, and at home virtual gym partner is going through a boom in sale also. In fact, many industries are seeing spike in sale these days. Okay, here comes the best part. There are psychological reasons behind this so-called hobby of ours. While a time of economic uncertainty and unprecedented unemployment numbers may not seem to coincide with increase in consumer spending, Ayala Review research shows otherwise. This happened after 9/11 and other terrorist attacks as well. People shop in a time of crisis. The surface level of this particular issue is boredom. Boredom leads to impulsivity, and for those who are experiencing the lack of novelty and excitement that staying at home brings, online shopping can fill that void of novelty. It is also a form of entertainment. Shopping keeps your mind off the chaos in the world and give you something fun to do. On a deeper level, many people are currently experiencing loss of control, and shopping could be a way of coping with it. It gives people a sense of agency and volitional behavior over their otherwise non-autonomous life, as they have to both stay at home and watch what is happening to the outside world unfold before them. Some volitional behavior that they feel in control over, including things like sprucing up a wardrobe or making their home environment look they want to, or purchasing new item, can provide some sense of control over their own environment, some sense of control over their own life. This is said by Anthony Di Maria, a clinical psychologist and psychotherapist. Oftentimes, people who feel like they are powerless over certain circumstances tend to reach for things that they do have power over, like online shopping. Shopping can provide a sort of wish fulfillment for our future self, even if we have no idea what the future will look like. He used an example of buying things that remind you of holidays, say beach outfit, new scarf, travel stuff, buying things that remind them of vacation, so that they bring to mind plans of what they will do when they get back to normal. It is not just your brain, it is marketing also. While shopping does provide an escape or comfort our brains may crave, that is not the only explanation. If your social media use has increased, it's likely you have been barraged with sneaky influencer marketing, and that is not accidental. Brands are putting more money into influencer marketing than ever before. While you could be using online shopping as a coping mechanism, you could also be affected by the increase in marketing that has the sole purpose of getting you onto those e-commerce sites. Now we have arrived at the downside of the story. Consumer needs to know that is actually a short-term fix with retail therapy. Soon after purchasing something, many feel reduced anxiety and even excitement, said review. Beware though, the feeling doesn't last very long, and with a shaky economy, the last thing people need is soaring credit card debt. This is how a feedback loop with shopping form, as it does with other addictive activities. You buy something, you get a high, then the high crashes down and you want to buy more. So to answer the question, yes, statistics prove that people do shop more during quarantine, but of course there is limitation of the research or the study. Okay, before I end this topic, I would like to say that pursuing your hedonic motivation during quarantine is always going to benefit yourself more than other people. It is true. But that does not mean that you should just spend your money all the time. Give it some thought first before clicking that purchase button. You know what is actually impactful is thinking about which business you want to survive. There is an obvious need to support the ones that are still struggling to make ends meet. Amazon or McDonald's, for example, will be just fine. If you need to splash money around, do it at local bookstore, stall, or that bakery that has moved online. It will make you feel more in control. Okay, that brings me to the next section. What is the best part of quarantine? We received quite a number of response from our audience about the one that I want to talk about today is this one. Okay, let me read it. I discovered how to do crochet at the start of the pandemic and now I am making small business out of it. Firstly, congratulations to you. It is not easy to do crochet and to start making business, but you made it. So I wish the best for you. You know, even though these quarantine lockdown are not easy, but I believe there must be something that you get, or something that you're proud of, or something that makes you happy. Whatever it is, keep doing what you most enjoy of. Most of us are spending more time at home than ever before, and with that comes a unique dilemma: what to do with the time we had normally be out and about. Being stuck indoors might feel like a bummer, but if you got the time and patience, a moment spent indoors presents the perfect opportunity to master fun new skill. Whether you're hoping to use free online workout class to become more fit, healthy, or learning online cooking course in hopes of becoming the next master chef, or anything. A lot of people have used the time to learn something or do something they always want to do before but cannot due to a lot of commitments or time restraint. Many people have started searching for the art supplies from 4 years ago, for example. Start painting again with way more creativity, more ideas, letting their imagination run wild. And making a great art, they start taking commission from it, making extra money. Some people start learning how to do crochet like the one who respond to us. Made homemade blanket, scarf, sweater, doll, or keychain. Some people start making jewelry on their own, made handmade accessories. There are also some people who start making candle, the pretty candle using custom scent, add dry flowers, coloring to make them both unique and Insta-worthy. A lot of people also start gardening, grow veggies, herbs, and flowers both indoors and outdoors. Or pottery and sculpting. Fun fact, you don't need a professional pottery class to craft some board or planters. Pick up oven bake or air dry clay and a small toolkit, and you will be all set. How many times have you said that you love to try something new someday when you had the time? Well, the day has come. As many people around the world now find themselves with nothing but time, thanks to the quarantine restriction due to the coronavirus pandemic, it turns out that when you have nothing else to do, you get pretty creative. Right now is a time to treat yourself because as crazy as it is and as disruptive as it is, we are never going to have this time again. So you might as well try and enjoy it. And that brings me to the last part. How did you spend your time during this quarantine? Okay, this question is for me. Okay, so how did I spend my time? Well, the first time MCO is announced, I'm pretty sure everyone was confused and scared at first. Then we start understanding it and enjoy it. Start doing things that we cannot before. For me, it's watching movies all the time without worrying about other commitment. Start watching the show that I in the list is at least a year ago. Start making dish and meal that I want for a long time. Then after that, on the second phase, I start reading old novels, old books, then start searching for e-books. Then you reach a point of sick of avoiding the sick. I mean, what is left to do when you have already exhausted from your favorite TV shows, getting more than enough screen time, read all your books, and grown tired of your video games or other hobbies? Then I thought, why not? I start learning a new musical instrument. So I did some research online, asked a few friends, and buy an acoustic guitar. Some people give up learning musical instrument because it is something that requires lots of individual practice time to build your skill set. But luckily, or unluckily, the coronavirus pandemic has made it easier to have lots of alone time. And every day, I look forward to the time to play guitar with myself. Sometimes I do stress of it too, but it is okay. Working hard to improve your skill or ability may increase stress in the short term, but people feel happy and more content with their life in the long run. This is proof in a 2009 study. Okay, I have a fun fact. Do you always catch yourself listening to sad song? Sometimes you wake up in the morning and start playing the sad song playlist or listen to it while running, for example, or okay, kidding. What I want to say is that happiness is entirely subjective, meaning that what makes one person happy might affect someone else differently. However, listening to sad music seems to be a common activity that has been linked with increased happiness around the globe. In a study that looked at 772 people on the Eastern and Western Hemisphere, researchers found that listening to sad music generated beneficial emotional effects such as regulating negative emotion and mood, as well as consolation. So my advice is find something that makes you excited for the day and excited for tomorrow. Something that makes you happy. That might be reading an adventure story, keeping a gratitude journal, or even cleaning the house. Find something that has the power to lift your spirit and keep them high. So that marks the end of this episode. We hope you enjoy it and gain something from it. Don't forget to tune in for our next episode. Thank you so much and have a good day. Bye.